Hello and welcome to Pock and Rob. This week's video is another of my Tracks in My Ears series where I take my favourite tracks from a particular artist and put them into a ranked order. This week I am looking at the music of the Kinks. Generally speaking, I tend to do videos that are either top 15s or maybe top 30s. In the case of the Kinks, I couldn't really stop, and so I'm actually going to do my first top 40. Before I go in and rank my tracks, I'd remind you to subscribe if you've not already done so, hit the thumbs up to like the video, and the bell to receive notifications of future content. And let's starting at number 40 and running down to 21. I'm going to cover these pretty quickly. I'm going to talk about their parent albums where appropriate later on. At number 40, from the Kinks debut, it's Stop Your Sobbing. Covered by the Pretenders as their second single, and that was where I first probably encountered it. At number 39, from the Kinda Kinks, the second album is Tired of Waiting. This was a number one hit smash single. At number 38, from the Lola album from 1970, is Ape Man. This was a follow-up to Lola and also made the top 5. Number 37, from the Village Green album, is All of My Friends, buried away on side 2, and just a really nice slice of that English kind of music that is all over that album. And number 36 from Arthur is Yes Sir, No Sir. At 35, from the Kinks debut, their first UK number one single, massive hit, pretty much the invention of punk, it's You Really Got Me. At number 34, from Village Green again, is Phenomenal Cat, another track buried away on side 2. At number 33, from the Something Else album, is the sole entry on this list that's not penned by Ray Davies. It's penned by Dave Davies, his brother. It's Death of a Clown. Just goes to prove that not all of the songwriting chops went to Ray. There was some in Dave too. Number 32, the sole entry on this list from the Everyone's in Showbiz album from 1972. It's Supersonic Rocket Ship. This was a single. I believe it made the top 30, maybe even have nudged into the 20, but wasn't a massive success. But Everybody's in Showbiz is an overblown mess of an album. I don't enjoy it. The live disc is ignorable. But Supersonic Rocket Ship is probably the one real gem on that record. Number 31, from a B-side. It was a B-side to Dedicated Follower of Fashion, Sitting on My Sofa. It just goes to show how much great material was coming from the pen of Ray Davies and from the performances of the Kinks, that a song as enjoyable as that was not even on an album, it was a B-side. To my mind, this kind of demonstrates that songwriting, he was right up there with Lennon and McCartney in terms of the output that was taking place in that decade. And at number 30, from the Face to Face album, an album that I don't think is as good as some of the critics suggest, is Party Line, the opening track. Generally speaking, I've not enjoyed much on Face to Face. And bearing in mind it includes Sunny Afternoon, their third UK number one single. It's just an album that hasn't grabbed me many times when I've listened to it at all. But Party Line has grown on me quite recently. Number 29, from Kinda Kinks, Where Have All the Good Times Gone? I believe this was either a single or a B-side, but it's just a great track. Number 28, a flop single. This was, I think, their first genuine flop single since You Really Got Me smashed in at number 1, and it's Wonderboy. I really like Wonderboy. I like Eddie Reader's cover version that I'd heard of it as well. It's a really strong song. Should have done better in the charts. Number 27, from an album that's often cited as their last great album, which is Muswell Hillbillies, I Have Placed Have a Cup of Tea. So English, it hurts. And number 26, from Village Green, Last of the Steam-Powered Trains. And number 25, from Something Else, is Tin Soldier Man. Just a great track, and it's a good album, Something Else, and it demonstrates, in terms of chart success, a significant decline from where they were for their albums to where they were. And this was 1967. At number 24, from Village Green, is People Take Pictures. I really enjoy this song. Again, a line like "people take pictures of the summer just to prove that it really existed." It's just a great line. Sticking with Village Green for number 23 for the not quite title song Village Green. This is the darker cousin of the actual title song, which may or may not be coming later. But I miss the Village Green. It's just, again, Ray Davies was almost second to none at this point. Number 22 is Mr. Pleasant. It's a great fun song and got a little bit of a kind of like sharp underbelly in terms of that whole English idea of pleasantness. Mr. Pleasant at number 22. And finally, in this little run, at 21 from Village Green again is Animal Farm. And nothing to do with the novel, at least I don't think so. But again, another little vignette within that album of nostalgia and Englishness. And number 20 from the Muswell Hillbillies album, and it's the last pick from that record, is Here Come the People in Grey. This is I used to think this was about mental health. But it's well, maybe there is a subtext of that, but this is more around the people in suits and another diatribe that Ray was having against the music industry, following on from the whole of the Lola versus Powerman and the Money Go Round album, which was all about the treadmill of the music industry and about how they spit people out constantly and mistreat them. Here come the people in grey at number 20. Number 19, famously covered by The Jam. It's from something else. It's David Watts. David Watts at number 19. Number 18, sticking with the Something Else album, for Two Sisters. It is apparently that this song is not about two sisters. It's actually about two brothers. And how Dave Davis was the man about town, whilst Ray was the stay-at-home. And so Two Sisters is actually two brothers. It's quietly subversive. Number 17 is a single from 1968, reached number 12 in the charts, I believe. It's Days. I have gigged Days. I love playing Days. I think it's a brilliantly perfect pop single, and I enjoy Kirsty MacColl's version too, which was my first introduction to the song Days. Number 17. At number 16, we're back with the Village Green album for Do You Remember Walter? Another piece of nostalgia from the album dripping in nostalgia for perhaps a time that never really existed. Walter at number 16. Number 15 is the most recent Kinks track on this entire list. It's from the 1980s and it is the first Kinks track I was ever aware of. It's Come Dancing. This returned the Kinks to the top 20 for the first time in over a decade, and it's just brilliant single. I remember listening to this, liking this track, talking to mum about this band I'd heard called the Kinks, and my mum telling me they're 20 years old. The Kinks were around before your dad and I got married, and me being blown away that somebody could be around that long and have that long a career. I mean, nowadays, doesn't blow my mind at all. We're talking about Paul McCartney having been writing great music for well over 65 years. But Come Dancing, my first ever awareness of the Kinks. And number 14, from Lola versus Powerman and the Money Go Round, is the title track, Lola. I read something recently about Lola. It hit number 2 in the chart. I'm not entirely sure what it kind of was held off number 1 spot by. It was probably Mungo Jerry or something. But Lola was such an important song for the Kinks in that, although the album didn't sell, the single and its follow-up gave them the impetus to continue into the 70s and then on into the 80s and again on into the 90s. Lola gave them their second wave of their career. And it's immensely subversive. There's been so much written about Lola. It's a song massively ahead of its time, given all of the gender recognition and gender identity issues now going on. Lola at number 14. At number 13, I have placed the single that I believe immediately preceded the release of Lola, and it's the opening track of Arthur and the Decline and Fall of the British Empire. It's Victoria. It's taken me a long time to really grow to love this track. I on the compilation that introduced me properly to the Kinks, which is the definitive collection, you can go and see my videos about the albums that define me to see an entry about that. Victoria was a bit of a... I wanted Lola, is how I felt about Victoria. I was waiting for Victoria to finish so I could get to Lola and then 8 Man. It's interesting that it's now flipped in its position, that actually, in its context of the album of Arthur, Victoria is a perfect opener and a great song. At number 12, a standalone single from 1967, it's Dead End Street. This is bleak. A bleak subject that they managed to take all the way to number 2 in the chart. It boggles the mind that this got as high as it did, given how accusatory and dark this song actually is. Dead End Street at number 12. At number 11, from the Village Green album, it's Johnny Thunder. I think this is an absolutely cracking song, and it's full of understated playing that the Kinks were so good at. And for me, the Kinks lost something special when Pete Quaife left the band after the release of Plastic Man. The Kinks had always been a troubled band, and the smart money for someone to lead the Kinks wasn't on Pete Quaife, it would have been on Mick Avery, who did not get on with Dave Davis. It took another 15 years, I think, before Mick Avery just walked out and had enough. But the next 3 tracks are all from the Arthur album. I can't separate them because I love all 3 of them equally, really. Number 10, She's Bought a Hat Like Princess Marina. What a great song. And He's Bought a hat like Anthony Eden. And it's all about trying to emulate these socially higher standing people by wearing a hat that's like theirs, even if it's really expensive and a bit fur coat, no knickers. She's Bought a Hat Like Princess Marina, number 10. Number 9 is the title track, Arthur. The guitar work on this is phenomenal. And I just love the riffs on Arthur so much that it closes the album, and coupled with track 8, which is Driving, also from the Arthur album, it boggles the mind that an album this good sold that little. What on earth was going on in 1969 that an album like Arthur couldn't even get a sniff of the charts? Not even a number 39 placing. Arthur is a great album. And number 7 is the first in basically all of the remaining songs have got some subversive, snidey twist in the lyrics, which is just so clever and I really admire it. Number 7, Well Respected Man, from the EP Well Respected Kinks. This contains the line, the defining line of the song, which is, he adores the girl next door because he's dying to get at her. I mean, it just strips the veneer of acceptability away from our well-respected man in just one line. It's genius. Number 6, they had the gumption on the Something Else album to title a track, which on first reading you might think is about a person, but it's not. It's about cigarettes. It's Harry Rag. This is a song built around the Cockney rhyming slang for a cigarette, and it's in many ways it's a celebration of working classness, that she won't be fine until she's had a Harry Rag. And even back then in the 60s, they knew cigarettes were being bad for you. Harry Rag at number 6. And number 5 is probably Ray Davies's greatest dig at any particular person. In a loving and affectionate way, it's still a dig. It's Dandy, from the Face to Face album. Now, I don't particularly care for the Face to Face album. I think it's hugely overrated. It reached number 12 in the charts and was the slow start to what would become a rapid decline in chart success. What a song. And it's about Dave. The second song on this list that actually directly references his brother. And again, we're talking about respectability or lack of in this case. And peach of a line, which is 2 girls is too many, 3's a crowd, and 4 you're dead. Oh, so clever written, and a warning to his brother about being that man about town. That rein it in, mate. And number 4, Plastic Man. The song that Pete Quaife really disliked and was the last thing released that had his bass playing on it. Plastic Man's a genius. I don't know what Pete Quaife was on, because it's such a cleverly written song. Kids just want to be plastic like their dad. It's just great lyrical rhyming and songwriting. Oh, I adore Plastic Man, and I think it's absolutely terrific. And number 3, from the Something Else album, it's Waterloo Sunset. So Waterloo Sunset is often cited amongst the very greatest songs of the 60s. Personally, I don't think it's even the greatest Kinks song of the 60s, but I do deeply admire Waterloo Sunset. How this didn't reach number 1 is one of those great 1960s mysteries, alongside how Engelbert Humperdinck kept Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields off number 1. From 1967, Waterloo Sunset is an absolutely perfect pop single. And yet, I've placed 2 things above it. At number 2, a song I have gigged, love playing, have great fun with, and is again plenty of snide lyrics in it. It's Dedicated Follower of Fashion. I think this is just perfect songwriting. So clever, so barbed, and it perfectly captures the spirit of the swinging 60s London. Follower of Fashion is just a great single. It's in my top 100 songs of all time, and has been since I ever started compiling a top 100 songs. Which means that my number 1 is also in my top 100 songs of all time. If you've watched my top 100 video, you might be able to tell which song it's going to be. It is the opening track of their greatest album, one of the greatest albums of the 60s, and indeed of all time. It's the Village Green Preservation Society from the Kinks of the Village Green Preservation Society. How I did not know this song until maybe 10 years ago is astonishing, because it is fantastic. I think this is possibly the greatest lyric that Ray Davies ever wrote. It's full of, at the time, pop culture references. Great lines like God Save, Strawberry Jam, Vaudeville and Variety, and God Save Fu Manchu, Moriarty and Dracula. It's just so joyfully brilliant. It is the lighter cousin to its not quite title track, Village Green. I think Village Green Preservation Society is magnificent. So that concludes a top 40 tracks of my years for the Kinks. Please let me know in comments below what your favourite Kinks tracks are. I personally think that they are potentially one of the most underrated bands in history. They are certainly one of the most repackaged. There were so many different combinations of compilations that have been brought out by the Kinks record company over the years that they've milked it dry, and yet at the same time there's so little that's known as widely as it should be. I'll be back in a week with another video, but until then, please remember to subscribe, like and hit the bell, and thanks for watching.